Welcome to your Newsmax Daily for a super busy Friday and news day, June the 13th, 2025, the 24th Friday of the year, the second of 4 Fridays this month, and with the exception of Good Friday, there is no bigger Friday than Friday the 13th. One of 2 or maybe 3 days of the whole year that more people will skip work because of fears and superstitions stemming from biblical and historical events related to Friday and related to the number 13. If you are staying home from work today or on your way home from work, you should probably fuel up because the price of oil is up more than 5% today in response to Israel's attack on Iran, which we now know killed the head of the Islamic Revolutionary Guard, as well as another military leader and a top scientist. Overnight, Iran did retaliate with at least 100 drones into Israel. Rob Finnerty broke the news during his show last night.
All right, welcome back into Finnerty. We're continuing to monitor the breaking news out of Israel this evening. The IDF confirming they have launched airstrikes against Iran's nuclear program. We do not know if that means nuclear facilities, but explosions being reported in the Iranian capital of Tehran. For more, let's welcome in Newsmax correspondent Zach Anders, who's live in Tel Aviv. Zach, good evening.
Hey, good evening. Yeah, we're watching and waiting right now for what we expect would be an Iranian response. That's why I've got the press vest on, a helmet nearby. If we do get an alarm, Rob, I am going to need to go inside and head for shelter because the last time that we dealt with these incoming ballistic missiles, some 200 plus back in October of last year, they were heavy hitters. This is a moment right now that you can imagine has waylaid the nuclear talks, the 6th round of talks that were expected to take place this Sunday. They were going to take place under the precipice or the idea that this would be an opportunity to finally give Iran that last chance to agree to a nuclear deal. It appears, as we've been reporting throughout the week, that Prime Minister Netanyahu has a different idea. This is a preemptive strike by Israel on Iranian nuclear interests, we will say at this hour, because we don't have confirmed hits on the nuclear sites. Those are way out in the desert. And so it's probably going to be hours, if not days, before we either get a satellite pass or somebody out there with a cell phone to be able to see smoke rising up from a desert facility before we'll know whether or not those nuclear sites have been hit. Some of these are very deep underground, but I think what is very telling right now from the first that we learned of this was the smoke rising up in apartment blocks over Tehran. Right now, the airspace is completely closed, so something just caught my attention it sounds like afterburners overhead. Certainly, Israeli jets. There are no commercial flights over Israel right now. The airspace is totally closed. The alarms went off, and that caught my attention because it was the first time that I've been here over these 2 years of war that I heard the alarms go off, and we didn't also get a simultaneous update on our phones. And within about 30 seconds of that, for the first time, we got what you would probably in the States be familiar with, an Amber Alert, the same tone. This one telling us that a state of emergency has been declared in Israel and that everyone needs to head for shelter. So right now, what we expect is taking place based on the scale of what we're seeing in Tehran alone, what I mentioned earlier, the fact that we're seeing apartment blocks hit and what appears to be very accurate targeting of specific floors of those apartment blocks. But based on what we're hearing on the Israeli side, it appears that Israel is also going after personnel. They're trying to hit some of the nuclear scientists, some of those figures or heads that are involved in the nuclear program. The fact that they're hitting the capital of Tehran alone right now probably speaks to that this is a massive in-scale level of attack. I am assuming, and I'll caution that I'm only assuming at this point, that means that they've also been striking or already struck the nuclear facilities out in the desert. But again, it's going to be a long time before we know for sure and are going to have confirmation if those facilities have been hit.
That's Newsmax correspondent Zach Anders live from Israel, where it was about 4 o'clock in the morning. Multiple news sources are reporting that those nuclear sites out in the desert were hit. Here's the update from Washington on Wake Up America this morning.
Well, the U.S. quickly sent word that it had nothing to do with these attacks, with statements both from the Secretary of State and just about an hour ago from the president himself. Let's get the latest now from the White House and White House correspondent Mike Carter. Good morning, Mike.
Hey, guys, good morning. The IDF, Israeli Defense Forces, saying that Iran has launched 100 retaliatory drone strikes overnight in response to Israel's initial attack. Today, the president is saying to Iran, warning them to agree to a nuclear deal or face even more brutal attacks. Of course, this operation, Rising Lion by Israel overnight, striking a number of nuclear targets in Iran, also killing top nuclear scientists and top members of Iran's military. Let's take a look, as we just heard from our correspondent overseas. Iranian officials say strikes targeted the country, killing top leadership, including the commander of the IRGC, Hossein Soleimani. Iranian state media says Iran's supreme leader says the attack Israel had prepared for will be met with a strong response. Iran's supreme leader confirming that top nuclear scientists were killed in the initial strikes, and Iran's foreign ministry is calling on the international community to condemn this Israeli operation. Israeli strikes are expected to continue indefinitely to send a message to the Iranian regime, but also to damage their nuclear capabilities regarding enrichment and also the ability to attach warheads to their ballistic missile program. In a statement overnight, Secretary of State Marco Rubio saying, tonight Israel took unilateral action against Iran. We are not involved in strikes against Iran, and in our top priority is protecting American forces in the region. Israel advised us that they believe this action was necessary for its self-defense. President Trump and the administration have taken all necessary steps to protect our forces and remain in close contact with our regional partners. Let me be clear, Iran should not target U.S. interests or personnel. Well, here's what the president had to say on Thursday, shortly before these attacks took place.
There's a chance of massive conflict. We have a lot of American people in this area, and I said, we got to tell them to get out because something could happen soon. And I don't want to be the one that didn't give any warning and missiles are flying into their buildings. It's possible. So I had to do it. I had the choice. Do I do it or not? Doing it has its downside, but it also has its upside, like you're going to save a lot of lives if it should happen. Hopefully that doesn't happen.
All right, that was the president responding to his action on Wednesday, telling all U.S. personnel to get out of the Middle East. Today, the president on Truth Social saying, I gave Iran chance after chance to make a deal. I told them in the strongest of words to just do it. But no matter how hard they tried, no matter how close they got, they just couldn't get it done. I told them it would be much worse than anything they know, anticipated, or were told, that the United States makes the best and most lethal military equipment anywhere in the world by far, and that Israel has a lot of it, with much more to come. And they know how to use it. Certain Iranian hardliners spoke bravely, but they didn't know what was about to happen. They are all dead now, and it will only get worse. There has already been a great death and destruction, but there is still time to make this slaughter with the next already planned attacks be even more brutal, come to an end. Iran must make a deal before there is nothing left and save what was once known as the Iranian Empire. No more death, no more destruction. Just do it before it's too late. God bless you all. And again, the president reiterating that the United States was not involved in these initial strikes at all. The president also says he was not surprised, however, by these attacks. And we now know this, and all of the last several days makes sense. The U.S. warning U.S. personnel to leave the Middle East on Wednesday. The president also met with top officials at Camp David last Sunday. We were wondering why he went to Camp David. Now it appears we know why. Well, the president wants Iran to come to the negotiating table now, immediately, on the nuclear talks. And it's something that is actually getting top Democrats to agree with the administration.
Newsmax White House correspondent Mike Carter on Wake Up America. There you go. President Trump saying he gave Iran chance after chance and that they should make a deal before it's too late because the consequences could be even greater. And Mike Carter mentioned that this is something even many Democrats agree with. This is Senator Elizabeth Warren on MSNBC.
I don't agree often with the Trump administration, but I think here it is important to say we need more negotiation, we need de-escalation, we need to get to a deal. This has the possibility of spinning entirely out of control. So we need to get these parties back to a negotiating table. We need the administration in there helping try to negotiate something.
And during his coverage last night on Greg Kelly Reports, Greg spoke with former IDF spokesperson Doron Spielman.
Can you tell us anything about what you know tonight, your thoughts, and if you don't mind, strength of a lion, if you care to comment on the name we're told of this operation?
You know, the State of Israel, I think it's an appropriate name because the Lion of Judah, the Lion of Israel, was awoken on October 7th when the Israeli people, again, by the same Iran who gave the order to Hamas, were under massive attack. We could have lifted up a white flag and crawled into our underground bungalows, but instead the Jewish people, the Israeli people stood up to fight for our country. It's the first time we've had a country in 2,000 years. We're not going to lose it. And tonight is the ultimate sign that Israel means business. You know, Iran, what do we know? We know that Iran threatened to destroy the state of Israel. We know that Iran tried to carry out that threat over the past year twice by firing, as the captain just said, more than 1,000 ballistic missiles. Each one of those missiles could have taken out an entire square block. Israel, by their military technology and the help of God, managed to stop that from happening. And now they want to be armed with a nuclear weapon. And according to our intelligence reports, we are very close to the point of no return, where Israel will lose the intelligence ability to even track that program. That's how far along it is. And therefore, the Prime Minister and the Defense Minister announced that we are carrying out multiple waves of attacks. And we should expect this to continue for some time until we bring their nuclear program to the point at which it can no longer function, hopefully to the point at which it no longer exists.
You mentioned the Prime Minister. I have this from Prime Minister Netanyahu, who confirms that Israel targeted Iran's leading nuclear scientists. It also struck the heart of Iran's ballistic missile program, including its main enrichment facility in Natanz. Our fight is not with the people of Iran. Our fight is with Iran's leadership, Netanyahu says. He also says this operation will continue for as many days as it takes. By the way, Mr. Spielman, I don't think anybody ever doubted that Israel means business. Israel always means business. And you've been so tough and so hard. And I think the entire world knows it, even your enemies.
You know, we paid the price, right? We went through a Holocaust, and, you know, that woke us up when we lost 1/3 of our entire nation because we did not have the ability to defend ourselves. The very state of Israel is built on two essential pillars. The first is that we've come home to our ancestral home as the indigenous people of this area for 3,000 years. And number two, we are not going to allow ourselves to be destroyed like what happened in the Holocaust. And therefore, we're going to defend our people and our land. I will say that there are reports, I can't confirm them, from inside of Tehran of certain specific strikes that have been carried out against their personnel. I'm looking online and seeing reports from Iran itself. And as you mentioned, the Prime Minister said this. We know Iran are not stupid. They're a brilliant nation. Unfortunately, that brilliance has been cultivated to attack the state of Israel and become the largest state sponsor of terror. But they will rebuild quickly. And we all saw that they were receiving shipments from China due to arrive at their ports with the necessary equipment to rebuild all the defenses that we took out just 7 or 8 months ago. And so before this window closes, we don't want to look back and say, how did we miss this opportunity to prevent this mass murder from getting a nuclear weapon? And that's what we're looking at unfolding right now.
That's former IDF spokesperson Doron Spielman, IDF, the Israeli Defense Force. On Greg Kelly Reports, during our extended coverage of the attack last night, Ed Henry spoke with foreign policy analyst Walid Phares.
Let's keep it rolling now with our friend Walid Phares. He is, of course, a Newsmax foreign policy analyst, and nobody follows the region as closely as he does. Walid, we have spoken now for many years about the possibility of peace, the possibility of a real Iran nuclear deal. There was supposed to be another round of talks this Sunday, led by Steve Witkoff, the president's special envoy. Now Israel attacks. The president has a National Security Council meeting tomorrow. What of Iran nuclear talks? They're over, I assume?
You know, let's go straight to the point. I mean, Israelis were ready for such strikes for a long period of time. We in the United States, under Donald Trump, we supported them. We saw that months ago. But what the regime in Tehran was trying to play is risk. They risked everything. The president gave them this possibility through negotiations with Mr. Witkoff, and there were exchanges of all these demands, and they were stretching and stretching and stretching while they were preparing themselves. They were buying and putting together components of the nukes, but they were doing something else. They were sending money, training, trying to pull another October 7th sometime at their decision. Israeli clock is different than the American clock. Israel cannot wait for all that to happen. So there is some coordination, in my view, between Jerusalem and Washington, but the Israelis felt that they need to do a strike. But let me add one point, if you allow me. This is different that many people have thought it would happen. Remember, we had a debate, all of us. Should it be striking the entire nuclear program, destroying it, not just the technicians, etc., or should we destroy their petrol, oil structure? We have been discussing with both of you for months and months that there could be a third way. And the third way is incapacitating the regime itself. That explains the first hours of the strikes, and we may see more of this. It's not just a program, it's actually the regime. With the head of the IRGC out of the way, this is a big deal. I don't know how the regime tomorrow is going to be acting if more strikes are going to occur in the next hours or tomorrow.
Newsmax foreign policy analyst Walid Ferris. Tomorrow is now today, and there is no telling what will happen today, this weekend, or in the weeks and months to come. And that is not hyperbole. Enrichment or no enrichment, I cannot see Iran taking the killings of their military leaders lightly. While President Trump meets with his National Security Council today, the 9th U.S. Circuit Court of Appeals has temporarily blocked a federal judge's order that directed President Trump to return control of the National Guard troops in California back to California. For more on all the legalities, we once again turn to Judge Andrew Napolitano.
So much to lay out here.
It is absolutely fascinating because what Judge Breyer did, does the name ring a bell? Breyer? Yes. He is the younger brother of retired Supreme Court Justice Stephen Breyer. What Judge Breyer did was the first time in American history that a federal district court judge has enjoined the president's use of the military. He didn't rule on the Marines. He said, under the Constitution, the president can only federalize the National Guard in 3 circumstances. With the governor's consent, doesn't have it. If there's an invasion, there's not an invasion. If there's a rebellion, which is an effort to take over the government by statutory definition, it's not a rebellion. Therefore, this is unconstitutional and illegal. He then said, I'm not going to tell anybody to move the troops around. There are people that could die out there. I'm just transferring command of the troops from the president, as you said in the intro, Mark, back to Governor Newsom, where under the state constitution and the federal constitution they reside. Then the government appealed. Then the 9th Circuit Court of Appeals, as you said, the most liberal in the country, said, hold up for 4 days. We want briefs, and we'll have oral argument on Tuesday. That's where we are now.
So, got it. Okay.
But according to Judge Breyer, not Justice Breyer,
right,
that means John F. Kennedy, Dwight D. Eisenhower, and Lyndon Baines Johnson were illegally taking over control when they used the exact same power to overturn a Democrat governor who would not follow the law.
The short answer to what you said is yes. The longer answer is he didn't address that in his opinion.
I didn't think he would.
No, he is not addressing precedent where this happened before. He addressed the statute, the Posse Comitatus Act, and he addressed the Constitution. So here's the uniqueness of what he ruled. When the president federalizes the National Guard, they become federal troops. Under the 1878 law, federal troops cannot engage in law enforcement. They can't detain people. They can't arrest people. They can't direct traffic. If they were under the command of the governor, same human beings, they can engage in law enforcement. They can direct traffic. They can detain people. They can arrest people. Therefore, it is a more efficient use. Now, the court just shouldn't be ruling on efficiency. It should just be ruling on the law and the Constitution. It is a more efficient use of these human beings. There are now 7,000 of them, National Guard troops, if they're under the command of the governor.
Got it. So I would think it's a similar process with the Marines. I mean, what about them? Was their issuance of their, deployment in L.A. also discussed.
You know, he delayed until noon today, California time, 3 o'clock our time, a ruling on the Marines. I suggest to you he's probably not going to rule on the Marines and just let the appeals court take care of everything on Tuesday. It was a profound repudiation of the president. It was a profound lesson not personal repudiation, of course, profound lesson in constitutional law. And he wrote 36 pages with 100 footnotes in about 2 hours.
Boy, he likes to write.
And he's 82 years old.
Now,
God bless him.
The one thing about the difference about the Marines, though, is the Marines have been sent there to protect federal infrastructure and federal buildings, much like they would be to protect a U.S. embassy overseas.
If that is all they do, there is no constitutional impediment and there's no legal impediment. They're not engaging in law enforcement. They are protecting federal assets, which presidents have used them to do all the time. And as you said, every embassy in the world has Marines there, which is U.S. property, has Marines there to protect the asset.
Newsmax Chief Judicial Analyst Judge Andrew Napolitano. And I'll go back to last night's edition of Rob Schmitt Tonight to wrap it up for the week.
All right, we've got a special treat. Jillian Michaels, host of the Keeping It Real podcast, is here in New York and decided to stop by the studio and talk to us. Good to have you on. Good to meet you in person.
Likewise. Thank you for having me.
Let's start with what you're sending. I mean, you were a California resident. I think you got out, right?
I got out for this exact reason.
Yeah.
In fact, I was just telling one of your producers, I was like, what's crazy is my entire life I spent as a Democrat up until the last several years. But never at any point would I have agreed with what has gone on the last week. And neither would the party have agreed to that. Somehow everybody has forgotten that they called Obama the deporter-in-chief. Like, how did we forget? Those are his cages at the border. It's not that I don't think that legal immigration has benefits, but this is absolute lawlessness. I can't wrap my head around it.
And what percentage of people are watching this stunt? I mean, even people that like Padilla, is anybody watching this and saying, wow, this is a real thing? Like, I mean, this is the fakest thing I've ever seen.
Oh, without
it's so
question, people are seeing this and thinking it's a real thing because anybody on the left wants that moment. They want to feel validated. They want to call you and go, I told you. Look what they're doing. They're arresting Senator. None of this is about reason or rationality. None of it whatsoever. And the minute I saw that picture of him in handcuffs, I was like, oh, hold on. He's going up on the cross. Wait, there it is.
Yeah.
And it's the moment that Newsom's been begging for.
Yeah.
Go and get me. I'm such a martyr.
Usually, if you really want to get your questions answered, the best way to do it is to find out right when they're on TV, burst into the room screaming, and run towards them. That's how normal people. I mean, if you're gonna, I got a question for you. Next time you're on TV doing a podcast, I'm going to break into your house and run into the room screaming in your face because that's how people get questions answered.
Of course, absolutely. I mean, but he's also not press.
Yeah.
And it's not a hearing.
Yeah.
So what were you doing there?
And think about all the threats that have been made against ICE. And I mean, it's like she's the head of Homeland Security.
I know.
Think about how many death threats she's gotten. You got a lunatic running screaming, and he got tackled. Wow. I mean, it's a tragedy.
They didn't even. The best part is they didn't detain him. They didn't arrest him. And I just learned from you.
And she got the meeting.
I just learned that while watching you. I was like, wait, what? I didn't even know that part. And honestly, what's unfortunate is I do believe the Republicans fell into that trap. By giving them the handcuff photo, you've given them this moment to go and grandstand. I wish they hadn't played into it. That's why I think, leave them to their own devices. Give them enough rope.
On the same topic, we can talk about these protests and riots, which are now, as we expected, expanding. They're here in New York. They were in Lower Manhattan the last couple of nights.
Yep.
So they moved out of L.A. Is this going to be, do you think this will be an all-summer thing?
I do.
You do?
Yeah, I absolutely do. Well, but if you think about why, I mean, it's very clearly organized.
Yeah.
It's very clearly being funded by someone. You've heard different accounts. Is it the Walmart heiress with this whole No Kings thing? Is it this group Churlaw? Is there a connection to Soros? The bottom line is there's definitely something going on. People are coming out saying they were paid to show up. They're finding pallets of cinder blocks and Molotov cocktails and gas masks and all kinds of... It's organized and it's funded.
Fitness guru and podcast host Jillian Michaels, formerly of California and formerly a Democrat, on Rob Schmitt Tonight. Good stuff. She mentioned the No Kings protests, which you've been hearing about all week. It's a nationwide anti-Trump protest organized supposedly by grassroots groups that's taking place across the country tomorrow, or scheduled to take place across the country tomorrow, coinciding with the Washington, D.C. massive military celebration, recognizing the 250th anniversary of the U.S. Army, the upcoming 250th anniversary of America, and President Trump's 79th birthday, which is tomorrow as well. Florida Governor Ron DeSantis, my governor, is again making headlines for his policies. This time, comments he made concerning protests on the streets of his state.
There is zero tolerance. You have no right to commandeer streets. And first of all, it's just wrong. Second of all, that has huge impacts on people's quality of life. You may have a parent needing to go pick up a child from daycare, from a camp, or from school. You may have somebody has a medical issue they need to get. And what, you're going to clog all the roads? So we have an absolutely zero tolerance policy for that. And we also have a policy that if you're driving on one of those streets and a mob comes and surrounds your vehicle and threatens you, you have a right to flee for your safety. And so if you drive off and you hit one of these people, that's their fault for impinging on you. You don't have to sit there and just be a sitting duck and let the mob grab you out of your car and drag you through the streets. You have a right to defend yourself in Florida.
That's Governor DeSantis on the Rubin Report. All the headlines are DeSantis says it's okay to run over demonstrators, or DeSantis tells Floridians to run over protesters. Yeah, if you're fleeing for your life, if you have a medical emergency, and if they are illegally blocking the street. On Wall Street today, stock markets opening deep in the red. The Dow down more than 500. The NASDAQ off around 300 at the open, courtesy of what's happening there in the Middle East between Israel and Iran. And as I mentioned at the open, price of oil surging. Bitcoin and most other cryptocurrencies sharply lower as well. At the time of this recording, Bitcoin is down more than $2,000 at $105,000. And one quick side note, Missouri Republican Senator Josh Hawley is co-sponsoring a bill with Vermont Democrat Peter Welch. You thought I was going to say Bernie Sanders, right? And this is to raise the federal minimum wage to $15 an hour, which is something you might expect to hear from Bernie Sanders. Many states, maybe the one you live in, have enacted their own statewide minimum wage. But do you know what the federal minimum wage currently is? Because I didn't. Take a guess. I'll give you a second. $7.25. $7.25 an hour is the minimum wage in the United States of America. It hasn't changed since 2009. As I said, many states have raised their own minimum wage way above the federal minimum wage, thankfully, but that is just downright disgusting and unacceptable. $7.25 an hour. And yet there will be senators that will somehow be against raising the minimum wage. All right. Stay informed and up to date throughout the day, and keep up with breaking news on Newsmax N2 and at Newsmax.com. It all starts each and every morning with Wake Up America, including the Wake Up America Weekend Edition. Don't miss America Right Now, 9 a.m. Eastern tomorrow with Tom Basili. Saturday and Sunday Report, Saturday and Sunday Agenda. Ambassador Nancy Brinker, Michael Savage, documentaries, and much, much more. I'm Tony Marino. Thank you, as always, for listening to the Newsmax Daily Podcast. Continue to share it with friends, family, and anybody else. And happy Father's Day. Enjoy your day. If you're a father, enjoy your family. Have a fantastic weekend. The Florida Panthers and the Edmonton Oilers will do it again tomorrow. Game 5 in Edmonton, NASCAR in Mexico City on Sunday. And keep on fighting the good fight.
News breaks every minute, every day. You need the app, the Newsmax app. Find it free on your smartphone store. Then watch us anytime, anywhere.
Information. Truth is freedom. Is Newsmax. It's real news for real people.